So good morning.
Good morning.
Hey,
Good morning.
Justin, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is your first time on our little show, isn't it?
Yes, and thank you for having me.
We're very excited to talk about what you got.
Likewise.
Yeah. So we will real quickly get through some numbers and share with everyone, what has happened this past week. And then we definitely want to introduce you, and we'll skip the small chat this morning while we're waiting for viewers, because I think Justin has a lot of great information, and I want to keep us less than 10 minutes so that we can get onto LinkedIn as well.
Perfect.
So let's talk about
the numbers.
New active listings. So pretty consistent.
Good.
Mhm.
Which again, this is for those of you that have not seen this before, these are covering the areas that we cover a lot of areas, but this is Bucks, Montgomery, and Lehigh County. Then we've got coming soons.
Down a little
Not more.
Yeah. Under contract, staying about steady there.
Yep. Now this one.
Yeah.
Bigger jump. Yeah. Back on market, 70 versus 48.
So those are, again, ones that fell apart, or I think we're going to see more of that as rates start increasing and things like, well, rates have been increasing, but you get it.
Right. And then price reductions.
Yep.
This is a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been seeing consistent, but this is just.
And what's exciting, I think, which kind of segues into what Justin's going to talk about, is we're going to talk about kind of another way of repackaging your listing in a way that maybe you don't have to do a price reduction. Maybe you can utilize some of these other options we're going to give you.
Right. So last week we had talked about a 3-2-1 buy down program, and that could benefit a seller, could also help a buyer. But Justin, you had mentioned something that you reminded Trisha and I about, which is FHA assumable loans or assumable mortgage. So explain, because I totally forgot about this, to be honest with you. Back in the day, you said that this was very regular.
It's a nice option. Yeah. Thank you. First of all, thanks for having me, and congrats on you both. I guess you're coming up on 6 months of doing this, and it's great stuff. So keep sharing. If anybody hasn't, make sure and like and share this channel.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
Yeah, by design, all FHA loans are assumable. And basically, FHA is the Federal Housing Authority. They put together the guidelines and framework that we all, underwrite and deliver loans through. We could say that there are a few exceptions, but I think the majority, the lion's share of FHA loans are all assumable. And what that means is, if a seller has an FHA loan and they want to sell their home, they could have a low rate that might be better than the market. Let's say somebody bought their house 3 years ago. Let's say their interest rate is 4.375 compared to where the market is today. That makes their loan much more attractive than what's available. Now, the FHA isn't just going to let somebody say, here's your name and address and take this loan over. The borrower would have to qualify and get approved. But the existing lender, whoever services and controls that FHA loan, they have an assumption loan package. So any seller, the best thing that any seller or borrower should do is get in touch with Trisha and Shelby, and they can share information. And as this changes, they can always provide content. There'll probably be some sort of link below. But what I recommend doing is just understand that it's a benefit to a seller. Now, equally so, if I'm a buyer and I'm interested in buying a home and I see that interest rates keep creeping up, this is a way that I could possibly reduce my closing costs and get a rate that otherwise isn't available. Right. So it's a great option for both a buyer and a seller. And it's not like all homes qualify for this, but let's say Trisha has a listing that the seller has an existing FHA loan. Then if Shelby is working with a buyer, she might know about that and have a tool to get you into a lower interest rate, lower closing cost option. Right. And if the buyer is interested and if there's an eligible home, it's basically just like applying for a loan, but you're applying directly through the lender that has the existing loan. The closing costs for that loan, if they qualify, would be lower. And it could be a great win-win for both a buyer and a seller.
Now you had said, so they wouldn't even need that 3.5% down. They would be assuming the current, so closing costs would be a lot less.
Closing costs would be a lot less. Down payment could potentially be less. The most lenders, loan officers and most lenders aren't promoting assumable loans
Right,
because it kind of cuts them out.
Right.
But if we were to look at the pro versus the con, some lenders or some advocates that are against it might say, well, then you're going to need a much larger down payment. And that could be true. Like, let's say Mr. Seller from 3 years ago has a very low interest rate loan. In theory, they also have some equity, and they're
Right.
not going to just give that all away. So the buyer borrower would have to put a down payment. But that's where it all comes to strategy. It all comes to
Right.
structure. And if you get in touch with Trisha and Shelby, they can help guide you.
They could get a second loan, I'm assuming, as well on, to kind of bridge that gap then.
They could do a lot of things.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately the loan has to be approved by the lender, but
Right.
there's lots of ways that there could be a second loan. The seller could possibly, I don't want to say definitely, but possibly hold private financing.
Yeah.
I mean, if this is a tool to sell your house
Right.
and we're getting into a market that's becoming more challenging, the seller wants to make their home more attractive to other buyers. This could possibly benefit both the seller and the buyer.
Right.
And the nice thing is it's only an option. I mean, just because a loan's assumable, well, if you don't like this loan, you don't have to assume it. Just get your own loan and buy this house.
Right. Right.
Justin, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming
Wow,
on.
my
and
pleasure.
enlightening
Thanks
us.
for having me.
And if anybody wants to ask you more questions, Justin, with Allied Mortgage, I don't know if we said that at the very beginning. How
Yeah,
can
we didn't.
how can they reach you?
Both Trisha and Shelby have my contact information. We could link to my website, but this is more about helping everyone and advocating and educating. And I think, you're working with two savvy realtors here. They represent both buyers and sellers. And if they have a property or if they have, if you have a need, you reach out to them and they can get you in touch with me.
Oh, Justin, you're
Thank
always
you.
plugging us. Thank you
You
so
are.
much, my friend.
My pleasure.
Guys, if
Thank
you have
you.
any further questions about assumable FHA mortgages, we would love to talk to you. And stay tuned if you we might have another special guest next week.
We're
Have
just
a great week,
pumping
guys.
out the gas here.
Have a great week, guys.